Conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco. Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero. Sulla portata di Pogacar, Pogba, rete, un gol incredibile. Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium.
Ciao tifosi bianconeri, hello and welcome to what will be episode 324 of the Turin Giants podcast. My name is Kevin. I'm your host for this live YouTube stream post Cremonese Juventus, and ultimately it will be posted as a podcast recording as well to all podcast streaming platforms. As always, we appreciate a 5-star review, a like, a subscribe. I am joined by, it's about to be 3 folks. Here we go. We have Zach, Frederic, and Patrick. Gentlemen, how are we this evening?
2 for 2 on wins, boys. I feel good.
Finally.
It's I feel awkward. I haven't had this feeling in a while now. Do we still get 3 points awarded if you win a match, or has that changed throughout the course of the season or something?
Explain this awkward feeling, Frederic. Explain it.
Well, I'm gonna pick up on what Boyan said in the chat. He kind of referred to the fact that he was strangely calm throughout the match. I pretty much had the same. I couldn't see this going anywhere but a win from minute 1 ongoing. So I'm very, very, not to say surprised, but I'm very relieved that we got the 3 points today. It was very much needed. And the way we did it, especially in that first half, was something worth mentioning, which we will elaborate on, I assume.
You assume correctly, but before we get too deep into it, we have an important birthday to recognize today. None other than our left winger.
Yeah, I was going to say Philip.
Serbian star, Filip Kostic, who turned 33 today and scored his first goal in the Juve kit in, I think, a little over 2 years. Quite the match from him today. But jokes aside, we know the old lady who came out today saying we are youth. Juventus, I think, arriving from Latin and yes, also coordinating with youth, but turns 128 today, aligning with November 1st, 1897. I'm assuming we all saw the either the email video or on socials today that Juventus posted, narrated by none other than Alessandro Del Piero. What did you guys think of that?
I think it was special. I think it was nice. I think it was a little bit distracting with all the noise about the club. And I didn't want all of that to take away from what was a really cool moment. And so I appreciate the video for what it was. And I was just hoping the team would be able to capitalize on the birthday with the performance today to not ruin that moment.
Frederic, you're muted, my friend.
Yeah, Frederic, you're muted. I'll go quick. Every year they do something, and every year it just gives you the goosebumps feel, right? This is a historic club, and despite the way they've been playing, in recent months, I guess we could say, it still gives you the goosebumps. It still gives you the good feeling that this is the club we love. This is the club we've grown up with for some people their whole lives. For me, 14 years. So it's nostalgic. It's a good feeling to really get that passion reignited despite the run of form.
I don't really care that much about dates, videos, and PR and hype. I really don't. I just want the trophy cabinet stuffing out of I mean, it's a nice gesture, but it's not more than that. It's hooray, huzzah, let's win a game.
And win a game we did. So with that, I think we'll dive right into it. But first, for the folks who have joined us, Boyan, Sarah GK79, Mohammed, Moel Jamal, if I'm saying that correctly, I apologize, Ahmad Sako, and the Godfather himself, Farhad, joining here as well, calling calling out Patrick, who's the new kid. Patrick, it's been a while since you've joined us. It's good to have you back, my friend.
Yeah, does this still work? I had to dust the cobwebs, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, new is new. Look. I mean, Frederic keeps talking about short lists with 100 names, which are anything but short. And then we have Patrick. Patrick, you've been on what, 10, 15 episodes right now. I don't know when dating back to last season. I don't know when the new moniker drops off. We're going to have to consult the rule book.
If we're going with comparisons, I guess I'll play I'm the Philip Kostic of the group,
Well, then happy birthday to you as well, Patrick.
There are so many things racing through my mind right now. I'm not even going to mention.
Well, we're going to hone that mind on a singular topic to get us started. So, Frederic, if we rewind less than a week ago, you, me, and Zach were discussing what would where would Juve's coaching destiny lie. And there was still speculation, albeit it was certainly pointing in the direction of Luciano Spalletti. And you, I think after some time of maybe doubting that link to the club, ended up, I think, having kind of an epiphany that this could actually be a very positive development for Juve and a good thing for us this season and potentially beyond. And I think you are quite convincing in your words and your assessment. So here we are, the first game under his belt. I'd like you to share your initial thoughts. What did you observe? What are you left thinking after Mr. Spalletti's first match?
Well, first of all, I think it's too early to judge. It's too early to judge Spalletti, as it is too early to judge people like Openda, who've played, a couple of games now. We can be a bit critical about them or whatever they do. I just want to mention on Spalletti, I think it's very clear that he wants to leave an imprint. This isn't just some random guy that, signed for 8 months of work to get the bills paid. This is somebody on a mission who wants to coach with intensity, who coaches with a view. And there was something that stood out for me today. While he was coaching on the sideline, he was not only working with players individually, but he recalled certain parts of the field as a whole. I saw him shouting to all the midfielders because he spoke about the midfield, drop down or move on up or keep calm on the ball, play back. He pushed some of the wing backs to go up. I think at a certain point, he asked Gatti to stay behind to be like a pivot point for midfielders to turn back to whenever they were under pressure. And this is something I really, really like. He was very hands-on directly. He did a thing. He put our good friend Cope as a left back, which nobody expected, I think. It turned out pretty okay. But it's very, very early to judge, but you can see that he's a man with a mission. He's not just here to fill in the spot on the bench. He has drive, he has ambition, he wants to change things. And I think my sentiments, albeit very prematurely, are not right because it's too early to judge, but I have the same positive sentiment that I had about a week ago. So I'm not disappointed in that regard.
You got to pump the brakes, though. Like Frederic, with your positivity, you kept saying it's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. We all knew, especially with a veteran coach coming in, that there was going to be a new coach boost. This happens in every league at every level, no matter if the coach is a lawn chair or Spalletti. So there's not at all surprised with the team coming together to play, I think, high energy, purposeful, and pretty tactically adept football. The question is whether once that honeymoon ends, what's left over. We've seen this kind of boost with Juventus and with other teams. Okay, will we have the Ranieri effect where we'll go the entire season? Certainly higher likelihood with a veteran coach like Spalletti, but at this stage you can't say whether it's going to be that side or on the flip side, where we just end up being the rebound date for Spalletti's terrible Italia breakup. We're not going to know until the honeymoon ends.
Can I add to that a little bit? That's actually the part that I'm looking forward to, is when the honeymoon is over, because the Tudor honeymoon got us 4th place, right? And you saw clearly that was not a long-term relationship. I think Spalletti, because he brings such competence to his background, his resume, all the rest, I actually think this honeymoon phase, once it's over, that competence will allow this to continue. And I think I share the positive vibes around that feeling, because I get the feeling that there is a professionalism there that Juventus haven't had since the return of Max. Despite all of the insults that maybe people want to throw at him, there's competence. I felt it in 90 minutes today. So I'm actually looking forward to the post-honeymoon stage, because we haven't had this in a while, this professionalism, this competence, the manager of, I'm going to prove a point and this is how things are done. So that's the part, Zach, I'm actually looking forward to with Luciano Spalletti.
Yeah, I want to add a couple of things too, because Zach makes a very valid point. However, in my opinion, this was, as a whole, for me, the best game of our season. Not in terms of goals or spectacle or what have you, but I felt like how we executed and how we controlled the game, apart from, when a lot of subs came on and our organization went a bit haywire and fatigue started kicking in. I think we managed to control the game much better than we did this season in any game. And the fact that Spalletti during halftime was livid in the dressing room, while I dare to argue that if we would have put the same performance on the pitch with Tudor, he'd be very happy in the dressing room during halftime and giving pats on the back to a lot of people or a lot of players. But Spalletti was livid. He wasn't happy at all. So I think that's also a sign that, Spalletti is dreaming a bit bigger and isn't content with just getting a fairly good result. And I hope that after the honeymoon period ends, this will reflect on our players as well, that they instill that same mentality of not being content with something that's should be fairly normal.
Yeah, but it's because it's the honeymoon period that the players would take a beating at halftime and not throw a tantrum, right? We've seen them throw tantrums against the last 2 coaches, if not a little bit under Allegri as well. So that's why I'm not negative on Spalletti or our performance today. I'm just trying to pump the brakes a little bit, because we saw tactical dominance for much of Motta's season, where we came out, we controlled possession. And it was a story, really, before he lost the locker room. It was a story of missed chances in front of the net for much of that season, and Bremer's injury, which caused us to concede late or to fail to go up. And largely in this game, it was the same exact recipe. We were tactically sound, just like under Motta. A myriad of missed chances, as some of the folks in the chat point out, right? And so obviously Spalletti's a much more veteran coach, but again, pumping the brakes, because we've seen these types of positives and we've been hurt before, and quite recently.
The question I posed wasn't meant to be a leading one to go beyond just what we saw today. And Frederic, earlier this week, across a number of the recordings that we've done, shared that there was a level of excitement and enthusiasm for this appointment. And based on what we saw today in a box, did we live up to that? Did we see enough that doesn't violate or contradict some of that change? And I think the resounding answer from the 3 of you and what we see in the chat is yes, overall positive, saw a reaction, some very nice positive play, relative tactical dominance for, call it 70, 75 minutes, the beginning of the first half and the end, or the beginning of the second half and the end of the second half aside. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's a very long season, and this is match number 1 against Cremonese, a newly promoted Serie A side. There's some comments coming in around MVP, which we will get to later in this stream. There's a lot of frustration directed at Gatti, which I know we'll unpack a bit, and some frustration about our inability to kind of finish off the match a bit earlier with the plethora of chances we had. But Zach, I want to kind of step back just a bit and look at how we started this match. Mm-hmm. I think when all of us saw the team sheet, people were probably scratching their head, rightfully so. I think if you went to 3 or 4 different football websites to see how this lineup was projected, every single one of them showed a different way in interpretation of this lineup. Was it a 3-5-2? Was it a 4-3-3? Was it a 3-4-1-2? Talk us through kind of your interpretation of what we saw today.
I think there were 2 key points to highlight about our formation. It was, and our Turin Giants chat was no different, right? We were going back and forth of what we thought it was going to be pre-game, and then Cambiaso pops up on the right, and then we kind of rethought it. The way I saw it was 2 things from Spalletti. One is, with only a few days to work with the team, he didn't want to revolutionize the tactics in such a short amount of time. He wanted to largely put these players in positions where they would feel comfortable. And we saw that across the field, except for one player. So we're going to talk about that one player because that's my second point. But first and foremost, he took largely a more veteran squad and put them in positions that they were used to playing in a formation that was familiar to them. Okay. And the 3-4-3 in possession, with McKennie kind of being that pseudo floater, but I call it a 3-4-3 that translated to a 5-3-2 in defense. The only positional change or individual change was the Koopmeiners role. And I think what the lesson here is that Spalletti is looking at the big picture. He's looking at wins, and he's said that I'm going to use you in whatever way I feel like is best to get the victory. You have to, it's your job to answer the call, which Coop did today, leading our team in completed passes. And I think that was a really interesting decision for him in his first game to demonstrate to the whole team, and Koopmeiners reciprocating this point that we're in it to win. It's not about the individual or what you think you should play. It's about doing the job that I ask you to do, and we will be successful. And so I think the combination of that message with putting most of these players in a comfortable position for them to be successful combined to ultimately get us, but for Gatti's error, a fairly comfortable win.
Any other thoughts on the starting 11?
Well, since both of our friends are muted,
I mean, I was gonna fill it, but I'm gonna let Patrick take this one. Go on, new kid.
Yeah. Well, based on well said on the veteran, the veteran take. It seemed like it was a very professionally approached game, and to get wins, you sometimes need to go no nonsense, and I think that's what Spalletti was doing. How many training sessions has he had? 2, 3, right? So one. Yeah, one, and then the speech or whatever, right? The meeting that Frederick, you've been talking about. So I think he went with guys who just could play a job, could play a role, and you just have to be better than the other team today. So I think that was kind of his approach, and it was successful.
I want to add something, small curiosity. So Spalletti did one training session. He didn't lead the training session. He left that onto the people and his staff. But he just said one thing to the team, and he said, today you're training for your starting spot. Show me what you got. That was it. That was literally all he said. He went around with a notepad and talking with Modesto, talking with his staff and things like that. So it's very clear that he wasn't going to revolutionize, but he wanted to spark a bit of a fire. And I think if looking at the team we played with today, I think it was very apparent that he wants to focus on first bringing in results to get the pressure a bit off the team, the staff, management, whoever, and then gradually, puts his mark on the team as he sees fit. So for me, that's something quite comforting in that, because I think you have somebody with enough experience, enough intelligence, and enough football insights to know how to handle this situation. And that speaks volumes, because you can win, draw, or lose a game or a couple of games, but if you can see that somebody has the vision to make something work out of a terrible situation or make the best out of it, then I think you'll feel more relaxed, and that also helps performances, because you could see Koopmeiners. I think if he'd had the same role under Tudor in the formation, he probably would have choked a bit left and right. But today he was very calm. He seemed to be very more energetic, at least in my opinion. I just take
He was
away
tidy. He was tidy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that's what Spalletti was aiming for. Let's keep it tidy. Let's get wins in. Let's build upon that, because the best remedy for a crisis situation is just winning.
Just a
So
professional match.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think for me that is very encouraging to the future. Of course, it can all go down the toilet with a huge loss or whatever, or another injury, God forbid. But I think we're on the right track. That's my initial takeaway, and the formation and the way he adapted the formation, because it was a different formation in possession, while not being in possession, for only having assisted to one training.
Mhm.
I think it was very, very well executed. So there is some intelligence in these players, I think we can assume right now, which we kind of were asking ourselves after the long stretch of draws and bad performances we had recently. So
Yeah, because nobody here or outside of this stream or across all of the fan base of Global Bianconeri can assume or think that Spalletti instilled some kind of tactical knowledge or transformation within these players over the course of this week and one training session. I mean, I think so much of this just came down to mentality. And before, like, coming into this match, there's a quote here from him, like, having courage is fundamental. We are not in a situation where nobody is watching us. So either you play it in the right way or you step aside. Courage is needed. And I think today we generally saw that across the squad, and a couple players did stand out among others with some very nice and notable performances. And I think so when you look at the players that were put on the pitch, with the lineup, with whatever small imprint he was able to make in a very short period of time, I think, Patrick, starting with you, just what did you see in the style of play? What excited you? How was this different from what we've seen in previous matches?
One word that stood out was intent. I know we talked about it kind of in our group chat, the intention in pressing style, particularly in the first half. It seemed like players were checking for others' positioning before they made their press. There was more of a, just because I'm close doesn't mean I need to get after it right away. Like, there's going to be some more suitable time to get after the ball when pressing. Balls were won higher up the field as a whole, which it led to more than just one chance. There wasn't just like a one chance and done today. The press allowed for higher recoveries, more like, let's get a second one, let's get a third one, and keep that pressure on, which was really enlightening. This is the way you, in my opinion, should play against a lower provincial side, is you just wear them out by, you're going to have to break us down. And when you play high press like that, it was nice. There were chances where it sort of let off. We talked about that in our group again. But one other big one, I think, is the Kostic. I can't believe I'm saying this. The Kostic inclusion allowed for Openda to really link up in various places throughout the pitch. you just see him doing little give and goes, almost at midfield, sometimes a little bit deeper. I was really excited to see a heat map for Openda just because he was all over. And I think I see in the chat, right, we need to be more clinical finishing, and he's obviously one of them. But I think he was very important in the smaller things for link up. And it does allow for Dusan to sort of have one defender on him instead of two guys, right, with his back to goal and two defenders to beat. I do want to talk a little bit about Dusan. Did he turn a man like more than once? I can't believe that actually happened, but I think the reason why he was able to do that is because Openda takes some of the pressure off by pulling defenders away, popping up in different spots that, let's face it, another player wouldn't do. I'm not sure in this squad. So a couple different things. It seemed very professional, very clean, and the players played in spots that they were able to be effective, which we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, and calling out Dusan, I think we can all agree that that was a nice performance. He did play for the team. Granted, his finishing was not top-notch tonight, but it was still a good overall team professional performance. Another player that I think stood out today, and we're seeing him called out multiple times in the chat. We have it from Anthony. We have it from Sky. We have it from Mohammed. Thank you for being here. All calling out Cambiaso. Zach, I'd love you to highlight what you saw from Cambiaso today. Is he just better on the right, and it's just a matter of him being on the right side of the pitch versus the left, or is there a little bit more to it?
I think when you look at the right versus the left, you have to consider what players are around him, because he's going to do the same thing regardless. He's going to move into the midfield and try to push up the field to support attacking moves, usually in the channel or from central positions. On the left, he's usually combining with Yildiz and Thuram, who all make forward movements, leaving enormous gaps behind him, which has killed us in counterattacking situations, especially as for much of this year, we've been really incoherent with our attacking moves. On the right, especially with three guys in the midfield, gives him a lot more supporting structure when you have Locatelli and the work rate of McKennie supporting inside movements from that position. I think from a tactical standpoint, that just simply gives us balance. And so when you're balanced, you're able to find more spaces, have more freedom, and that put him in positions to be successful without hurting the team. And so I think from that perspective, it was a very good tactical choice from Spalletti, but not to go to say that he's better on the right versus the left. I think we just have to be aware of positions and who's around the player in order to support what makes them successful. Frederick was so blown away by my speech that he just dropped. He said he was
real
done.
Fast. I know Farhad likes to check FOTMob. FOTMob did share that Cambiaso was player of the match. I know Kostic officially won it, but Cambiaso was player of the match with 8.3. So something to be said.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, all the ratings websites are going to accentuate the goal, right? So you're gonna see Kostic up there. You're gonna see Chico up there, or not Chico. You're gonna see Cambiaso up there as well. But I think his possession play was really clean today. He had some good dangerous crosses as well, and he put himself in a really good position. I'll note on that goal, Chico had been subbed on, and they moved McKennie to the left. And so when Chico was making his move, McKennie made a back post run, was for a moment unmarked, which then caused defenders to transition to him, leaving that open space in the middle for Cambiaso to move into, which ultimately he took advantage of for the goal. And so I think smart movement and smart tactical play really benefited this team in order to give us the 2-goal lead, which ultimately we needed because of the nonsense from our center back.
I'm going to pump the brakes here because I feel this is typical Cambiaso. He can play like a hell of a game and then disappear for the 5 consecutive ones.
But this is 2 games in a row where he's been decent. It's more than just one.
Well,
that's not enough.
I'm saying this with tongue in cheek. I'm saying it with tongue in cheek.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that his performance against Udinese wasn't as good as it was today. Today was a really good performance.
No, today was better, for sure.
But I want to see him do that during a long stretch period of time. because I feel that's where Cambiaso always drops the ball in his consistency. Once he gets that level of consistency and he plays decent for a number of straight games, let's say 5, 6, 7, then we can talk about somebody who is of more value to this team. If he, next game starts with, his head up in the air again and not paying attention or losing it, his focus and whatever, then there's not much to say. Cambiaso is what he is. I think Spalletti can make him better, but he needs to be open to it. And that's a lot of things that a lot of coaches of Cambiaso pointed out also in the recent past, that he's somebody who's very stubborn. So if he can let go of that and a bit of his ego and he can focus on the things that Spalletti and his staff are trying to improve, then we might have a good player on our hands. But, it's also, I think, a mental thing, not just for him, but for a number of players. So Spalletti will have his work cut out. So we'll see.
Cambiaso made one really big mistake, and that was showing us in the first half of last season how potentially world-class he could be. So now we've ever since been holding him to that standard. And he hasn't been it since those rumors to Man City happened around the transfer the January window last year. We'll see all these players, right? When the honeymoon period drops, who's left standing? We saw a lot of really good performances today. Dusan, who always starts well under new managers and new circumstances, play well today. You saw Locatelli, really try to impress today. You saw Cambiaso, who's been mediocre at best for the last 8 months, play really well today. And I'm happy for that. And I think we should applaud that. But I think, again, in the interest of me pumping the brakes this entire episode, ultimately, whether he can keep it up after the honeymoon period drops will be the ultimate indicator of whether he's got a future at this club, really.
Question
Sorry.
Question for the group and maybe even the chat as well. If Cambiaso really is going to play on the right, is that mean Kostic is the true starter on the left? I have some concerns there. I never really believed Kalulu was a wing back, and I don't know what the ultimate formation under Spalletti is going to be. But if he's going to be on the left, and by Cambiaso, I mean, or on the right, then what does that leave on the left? I have some concerns.
Not even Spalletti knows, I think. I think the coup decision today was basically because we don't know how long Kelly's going to be out. And given the fact that, in 3 days we have another vital game in front of us, I think it was Spalletti's choice to start Coop there and get him acquainted with that position in case we should need him against Sporting or maybe other games. So I don't think Spalletti has a clear view on what he wants or how he wants to play, because I'm piggybacking here a question by Mikkel. Cambiaso, no, I'm sorry, that's not the question. How do you see the future for Gatti under Spalletti? I think it's way too early to talk about futures, to talk about potential transfers, positions, whatever. I think we need to let Spalletti just take his time in order to assess what is possibly up for improvement.
Disagree, Frederic. Hard disagree on this one. I think this is the most obvious question that could possibly be answered. When Bremer's back, Gatti's on the bench. Done.
If Bremer's back, then Bremer needs to be Bremer.
Well, but you just look at it. If he's going to play a similar form like he's going to do today, Lloyd Kelly's been in excellent form this year. He's going to have that left center back position. Okay. Kalulu's been really good this year on the ball and in defense. Move him back to the right center back instead of right wing back.
Which he played today much better.
Which he played really well today. And then put Bremer at the last position because he's our best defender. Gatti's a bench player when our defense is healthy.
I'm trying to think of how to put a sentence without telling too much. Darren Burgess.
What can we do to make you tell?
No, I'm thinking about I'm just thinking about how to formulate my words here. But Darren Burgess has been very amendant in the fact that the types of injuries that we see, the lengths of the injuries that we see at Juventus, is something that he wishes to improve upon drastically and urgently. Darren Burgess is also the final person in control of clearing a player, because now it was J Medical as a whole. Oh, he can start, running again, but without the ball, and next week he can train without the ball. Those days are done. It's now Darren Burgess who's in
I
charge
love that accountability.
of signing, and it's actually a piece of paper which Darren Burgess needs to sign off in all little aspects a player to resume training again. So, and he's very cautious and not negative, but very apprehensive about Bremer and his physicality. Because I'm gonna go out and give a little scoop here. The injury of Bremer, the meniscus one, the last one, is more complicated than we foresee.
I think
Yeah,
there's a
He
lot
has
of
a
people
lot.
that are terrified for his future with this club, and
Me
are his
too.
best days behind us.
The issue with Bremer is that his cartilage and the inside of his knee keeps inflammating, and it started during the revalidation of his ACL injury, and they didn't know why that happened because it had no direct correlation to the injury itself. I think they know now it was the meniscus that caused that strain. So now what they've done is they amended the meniscus a bit, but they're not sure that it'll be strong enough to prevent that cartilage inflammation to reoccur. Because if that cartilage inflammation keeps reoccurring, then you'll have a player who's fit for 1 month and unfit for three.
Hmm.
The only alternative then, in worst case, is to remove the meniscus as a whole, replace it with something, I don't know, synthetic or whatever, or however you want to call it. But that compromises the structure of
The
your
integrity of his
ACL
knee. Yeah.
as a whole. So it's a very, very, very difficult medical situation that we are, and Darren Burgess doesn't want to risk Bremer. And make no mistake, if Bremer returns to form, um, as we know him, he'll carry the defense. If not, I wouldn't be as sure to say that we'd have him in our team next year. So we have to be
So we've
very
had
careful, especially injury wise.
So we've had some other new folks and names join us here on the live stream. Again, thank you for being here with us. Sky, our boy Jack, thank you for being here. We have Anthony, we have Chris, we have at Zeru, however you choose to pronounce that, probably not the way I just said it. We had Mickle, we have Skippy, and I may have said we've got Batter BJJ. Thank you, folks, for being here with us. Spalletti's comments post-match have come out. So he was highlighting just it was the intent to put an extra man in the midfield. I know so many of us were screaming to move at least to a three-man defense after we were struggling with just the double pivot and us being dominated and overrun in the midfield. Spalletti quotes, "I saw a good performance in terms of communication and focus because Koop Miners was more of a defender than anyone else when it came to ensuring organization and calling the line on the counterattack. It was necessary because Cremonese are so dangerous with that ball over the top for the champion. That is Vardy," which we saw with the goal that he scored. It seems from the outside that it's a great thing with Juventus having everything available, and it's even more remarkable from the inside. You've seen nothing. That puts pressure on and makes you realize the level, and it can weigh on some players, so they need time. I know, Zach, you don't read too much into pre-game or post-game thoughts. Just seems pretty direct, calling a spade a spade. I'm sure more comments will come out. Given, again, for those listening, we are like less than an hour into after the match, and a lot of analysis and other professional opinion other than us dopes here giving our perspective hasn't yet come out to the media. Anything, Zach, on his comments there?
I think what his comments were a reflection of what we saw on the pitch. Like you said, calling a spade a spade. It wasn't anything special. I do think he was very diplomatic in how he described Vardy's contribution to that goal, which could be said, which is nothing other than an absolute horror show for the man who used to work in construction, getting bodied by a geriatric striker from Leicester. So he was very diplomatic there, because that was just embarrassing. And if I was Gatti, I would go home, turn the light off in my closet, sit down and reflect on my existence, because there's no amount of performance more embarrassing than that one-on-one disaster. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
No, rightfully so. Rightfully
Amen.
so. I think we can all agree, and I think this is the existential issue of our crisis, is that a lot of players that we have just don't cut it. Not even in terms of one game or whatever. In terms of consistency, Cambiaso could be a very good player if he was consistent. Vlahovic would be a very good striker if he was consistent. Locatelli would be a good midfielder if he was consistent. And, the list goes on. Whereas in the past, you had these world-class players in our team surrounded by the normal players who used to run for two. But, you had that one-of-a-kind player that used to tear up games or open up a game with some sort of individual effort, which we are lacking at this point. And that's a very harsh reality to be in, but it is what it is. So I feel that if we can give Spalletti time, and if he can, get the most out of the squad and squeeze them like lemons, which is his intent, I think, we have at least some sort of basis to build upon. And if we then, reflect as a team, and with a team, I mean, not just Comoli, but Modesto, maybe our new sporting director, whoever that'll be or whatever, then we can build on to something. Now it's just too early to tell, but like you said, Gatti just doesn't cut it. Gatti just doesn't cut it. And can you train on that? I don't know. I think the real world-class defenders, like a Bremer, like a Cannavaro in the past, they are so different from everybody else that they can, with a blink of an eye, scare a striker. Whereas now it's very difficult for us to have such an impact as a backline on our counterparts. So
I saw it as a matter of confidence. I thought he was scared. Because you see him take a step up to go head that ball, and then he sort of scrambles back, gets thrown off balance by Vardy.
The moment you hesitate, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
He hesitated.
And the hesitation I viewed as he was scared. He was scared. Because Gatti, I mean, we talked about it, but last year at times, Frederic, and it's not much this year, but a lot last year, where he'll be just like hopped up on bottled Grinta. Is that what we said last year?
Yeah.
Where he just goes in, he makes these huge runs, he just bodies fools. It was, he's much of this year we've seen a Gatti that doesn't have the level of confidence, his bicycle kick aside, that we saw for most of his tenure last year. And I took his hesitation to be a moment of fear, and whether that was fear of making a mistake, fear of not impressing the coach. Well, the second you don't have that confidence, you're, like Kevin said, you're screwed. And I think it's a matter of, when you say training, it's not a matter of technical training. It's with Gatti, who wears his heart on his sleeve, much like you, Frederic. It's man management with him. I think that's what Spalletti's going to do, is pull him aside and say, hey,
Yeah, but I think at this level, at his age, heading that ball away should be instinctive. From the moment that isn't just pure instinct, then
that
you're not
was his
good
instinct. He took the step forward to do just that, and then he questioned his instincts. He overthought it, and that's where. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it and rolling it up to fear. Okay, whatever it might be, that stopped his instincts, and so I guess the one saving grace here is his instincts were right. He though, and this is why I call it as an issue of man management, not technical gifts, and Gatti is not the most technical player, but his instincts have generally been pretty good, and he questioned them, and that's something that's actually fairly easy to fix, because nothing's broken in that regard.
We just simply put, we have a lot of players that should be on the bench but are in the starting lineup due to necessity. So
yeah, Gatti,
of,
like I said with Gatti, with Bremer, Gatti's won today, absolutely.
So let's move on to another two players here who are getting called out pretty frequently here in our YouTube live chat. There's been a number of comments around Openda's performance. Now, I think we saw a brighter. I'm going to try and characterize this in the right way. I think we saw some good movement. I think we saw a brighter, more energetic performance, given that he had more minutes to work with today than just coming in towards the end. He definitely didn't have his finishing boots on today and taking way too many touches very frequently. Patrick, how do you assess Openda's performance today, and how much more patience do you have for him?
I think I might be unpopular here, but a lot. If there was a moment, I don't know what minute it was in the game, he and Dusan were not on the same page, and the camera cuts to Openda, and he's like trying to communicate. And I think you just said, Kevin, he needs more minutes. Like, he hasn't had a full slate of time with these guys. You see how dangerous he is in his past with a player like Vlahovic, who, commands a lot of space. We've talked about Šeško before. And so I think with what he did off the ball and allowed guys to kind of do their own thing, that's a player we desperately need just to build up a little differently than swing the ball across the back and hope Chico has a minute to beat his man. A very different type buildup with Openda in there. Yes, we should criticize him for not finishing. We should criticize him for taking few too many touches in some cases, in a lot of cases. But I think what he brings is a different style of play, opening up the defense. And I think he is just learning. He has, I don't know, have a minutes counter for him, but it's not much. And so there needs to be some consistency there. And I do give him a longer leash, because I think in the limited time, despite scoring goals, we've seen him add quite a bit to the team in his limited time. So I'm giving him a longer leash. I might get chastised in the chat, but we need players who are dynamic, who can do multiple things. He is one of them, one of the few.
Sorry. Go on, Zach. Sorry.
Hani in the comments, Hani C, thank you for being here, indicates Openda will score eventually, and when he does, the floodgates will open. Zach, do you agree?
No. And I don't agree, because we've seen two Opendas. We've seen a Openda of 2 years ago where that was true, and he was fantastic. And then we saw Openda last year, who, despite getting a really good assist against us, was that last year? I think that was last year or 2 years. I can't remember. Really struggled to score, and they just never came. The thing is, and I'm going to take a big step back about the goals. We can focus on the goals. He takes too many touches, and he hasn't scored because of it. And that is not good enough from that realm of his game. But when we look at the first goal today and the first goal against Udinese, both of those goals went through Openda. The penalty was due to Openda square ball to Dusan, who had position on his defender. The first goal today was Openda putting it through in the box at a dangerous position, and it was deflected, obviously, for Kostic to score. But both of those goals ran through him. And if we're going to judge, I don't think it's too harsh to judge our strikers simply on goals scored when they're contributing to goals in other material ways. If he wasn't contributing to goals at all, then applauding his movement and his build-up play would not be good enough. But I look at contributing to goals and supporting the striker, which really was his role in a lot of ways the last two games. I think he's done that somewhat successfully. I do think he needs to start contributing with goals and taking fewer touches and start shooting first time, which will make him a more well-rounded and dangerous attacker. Absolutely. But over the last 2 games, our tutorless games, he has contributed to our goals in a positive way, and that is going to be beneficial to our team over the course of a season.
All right. So from each of the three of you, if over the course of the next couple games, if somebody's going to get either more starting minutes or just more minutes in general, who are you betting on? David or Openda? Just give me one word answer. Zach.
Openda.
No. Okay.
Openda.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
Okay.
Openda.
What we need, we seem to forgetting, or at least a number of the Juventus supporters are forgetting one thing. For a striker, it's vital to have minutes in your legs, because if you don't have minutes in your legs, you start to overthink. That's why he's taking these 3-4 touches before concluding. That's why he's always, before shooting, thinking about where will I shoot the ball, because it's not an instinct, because he doesn't have that many minutes in his legs. If you get minutes, you get confidence, you get a bond with the players around you, or in his case, Vlahovic, because it's obvious that he's playing in support of Vlahovic. And the fact that he was also brought in to play as a supporting striker and not our main goal scoring man.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole idea behind it. And you can get Openda in that position. And I think we have done fantastically by acquiring him. I'm not going to judge the amount or the whatever. I think if we if we finish 11th, then the contract is not automatically triggered. So we need to come in 10th for him to be a definitive Juventus player. But give the guys some minutes. I mean, how long have we waited with Vlahovic? Because he went on a dry spell as well. Every striker in our team did that. And if you see what Openda brings to the table, not only attackingly, but because of his runs, he can relieve a lot of people in midfield. He creates spaces. He creates room for other people to come in, to insert themselves into either the last part of the pitch or either near the penalty area. That's a gift to have for this team, because we have a lot of static players and a lot of midfielders that aren't able to create a goal scoring opportunity. So to have him, for me, is an added value, but just give him a bit of time. I mean, the hashtag Openda out, I find it quite frankly a bit ridiculous, because
not from I think there maybe
no.
One
I
opinion.
mean,
yeah, but for those who aren't here with us on the YouTube live, the comment section here resoundingly in favor of Openda and putting faith into Openda and sharing that there's a lot more worry around David's mentality, impact, and future with the club.
Yeah,
Zach, looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Also, just 2 things. First off, just to give people a picture of the playing time that Openda has had, João Mario, the guy we haven't seen all year, has more minutes than Openda this year in all competition. So I think that should give folks a real representation of how little game time he's gotten. But that leads me to my second question out loud is, when Yildiz is back, if we see a similar type formation and play style, does Yildiz come in for Openda to play that second striker, or does Yildiz come in for McKennie? And if the answer is for Openda, then Openda's never going to get the minutes. And if the answer is McKennie, well, then we revisit what I said earlier about Cambiasso on the right, of finding balance in a formation, especially when a guy is prone to vacating his position. And so that's going to be a very interesting problem for Spalletti to solve, is once Yildiz comes back, because he has to come back into the starting 11. Who's it for, and how will that affect how we play? Maybe that'll be the spark to go to a 4-3-3 instead of sort of a 3-4-3 in possession.
And I think the comment from Frederic earlier is just not even Spalletti knows yet. I think he's just one game at a time, and with the players who are available, putting.
He has an idea. He has an idea.
Yeah,
let's be real.
Yeah,
he has an idea. We just don't know what it is yet.
I think if you look at the past or the teams that Spalletti's, he was always very adamant with playing with a true number 10 style player. Even if he didn't have a number 10 style player, he made sure that he molded one of the players into that type of player. even with the stereotypical player in front of defense, between defense and midfield that he used to apply, or even the advancing midfielder, so to speak, the attacking midfielder as a number 10. So I think he sees Yildiz in that number 10 role, whether it be more up front or more secluded, just up front in midfield. I'm not sure if that's going to play out, but I think the biggest concern of Spalletti now, especially for Yildiz, is letting him rest a bit, because he knows the importance of Yildiz. Yeah, and the knee thing, albeit it's not a worrying issue, it can very well lead up to become a worrying issue by all the minutes that Kenan has asserted around over the last couple of games. So let's give it time. I'm sure he'll figure something out, but it's up to him. It's his problem now. That's why we signed him. So.
So as we start to wind down this episode, folks, if there's anybody in the chat that has a final question for us, please feel free to share that as we start to kind of approach the end of this stream. But there is one thing I do want to call out. So we've talked about a number of kind of the positivity, the intent of the play, a bit more higher press. Some players shined. We've had some criticism for Gatti. We did see towards the end of that second half our play drop off, and we were conceding more space, possession, and chances to Cremonese. Is there anything that you feel contributed to that? Was it the subs? Was it fitness? Was it a lack of mentality? Was it just normal ebb and flow of a footballing match where you can't dominate for a solid 90 minutes? Zach, I'd kind of love your take on that.
So I feel like my colleagues here will talk about the end of the match. I want to focus in on a window from about the 48th minute mark to about the 58th minute mark, because we came out right after the second half. We had a chance, and then we disappeared. Very similar to games under Tudor and, frankly, Motta. And I was really concerned that we just didn't have the right energy. We didn't come out the right way, and we would struggle for that second half. And what I saw for the first time in quite some time is that moment of threat and that moment of disorganization from our starting 11 was very short-lived. And we saw the wonderful salvo in the 58th minute, give or take, where we had all those chances from the box. It just kept getting recycled in, dumped in. We saw the sub in the 64th minute for Chico, and then we turn around just a few minutes later, get the goal. And so we had then, after that, give or take 8 minutes in the early second half where we weren't very good, we saw our ability to adapt. And it's surrounded in part the first substitution from Spalletti, which also showed you stamping his imprint on the game in a meaningful way in the second half to give us, I think, our first half level of dominance from about the 55th, 58th minute mark all the way to Gatti's error late in the game. And so I think that showed a lot of maturity and adaptation from our players and our coach to fix mistakes and or issues that we've seen with their last two coaches over the last year and change.
Guys, have any comments to that?
Yeah, I agree.
Fell off?
I agree, Zach. But to me, there is ebbs and flows of a game. I think I said in our group chat, it is much nicer to play from being ahead. And when that goal was scored from Vardy, despite all of Gatti's lamentations, I think to the players, it felt like they just gave it up again. Like, here we go. Here comes the momentum. So I think it is a mentality thing that Spalletti is going to have to rewire some of these guys. Now, let's face it, Juventus still had the lead at that point, but we've seen how these games have gone in the past. So I think it's a mentality thing. Now, that 10-minute mark is something could have happened there. It did not. And I just attribute that to just being part of the way a game goes. But we'll see as games go on. We're praising Spalletti, and rightfully so, but the game is Cremonese at the same time.
It's the ghosts from the past that keep haunting us. We did every second half we started very tame, and I agree with what you said, Zach. I think Spalletti saved us there by making the substitution, but also coaching very passionately along those lines and
Yeah.
pointing out to people, "Wake the fuck up." He actually said that in Italian, "Wake the fuck up," and that contributed. But also, Spalletti had, he went ham on the ref for like 2-3 minutes.
Oh, that was so intentional there.
That
just
was
to
so
take the air out
intentional.
of the game.
and
Oh,
His
yeah.
and that was
experience. Yeah.
so good to see, because that's 2-3 minutes you lose of possible Cremonese pressure or chances being either not conceded.
And the ref
So
didn't add it on to the stoppage time.
All you
No, no, no.
coaches
5
out there
minutes and he
just go
blew it at
crazy at
95-11
referees.
or something.
My man
all you
Luciano,
aspiring coaches out there.
my man Luciano was so smart to go to the fourth official as well after he received the yellow to whine a bit more about
Yeah.
things. And you had the ref looking at, hey, what do I do? Because he doesn't talk with the fourth official. Then Cambiaso was walking, and you could see Spalletti was agitated because he was like telling Cambiaso, stop walking, don't do that throwing yet. I'm still here creating my own show. So that's very, very good to see. It was a very good move. And
Only regret is he didn't start taking off his clothes. That was the
not
only
yet,
regret.
not yet.
Game one,
Let's
game one.
He needs to have his own style. So, guys, I'm
But-
going to give you each a rapid fire question from the chat. Tight answer. Zach, your thoughts on the schedule this month? Do you think we can get through it without dropping points in all competitions?
I think it's
This question coming to you from Josh Benton. Josh, thanks for being here.
I saw Josh's comment, and I think it's an absolute gift. When you look at the schedule, we had a tough start of the year, and we're in a relative cushion. Okay, I think all of you have said Cremonese is easier opponent, blah, blah. I disagree with that. 1 point behind us, beat Milan earlier, played a lot of people tight, coming in with a decent run of form. You had to respect. But Udinese, Cremonese, Torino, this version of Fiorentina, Cagliari, Udinese again, all before Napoli, all games that we should, if we go back to the lawn chair coach I referenced earlier, we should win all those games. The two tricky ones just so happen to be our Champions League matches. Sporting, a game we should win at home, but they are lighting up the Portuguese league. They've got they just won yesterday, so they have an extra day of rest. They've scored 20-something goals. I think like 25 goals in 8 games. Extremely impressive run of form. And then we have the away match in Bodo Glimt. So the two tricky games are in the Champions League. All of our league games are on the easier side, and that should give Spalletti, with an international break, time to implement his tweaks to really get us to get in a good run of form. So definitely advantageous.
Patrick, this question coming to you from Hani C. What advice can you give to Gatti?
Grow up. Play your spot. You have big shoes to fill with Bremer out. He's been given opportunities in the past to just be a defender that Juventus can count on. I've never been a Gatti fan. I know I've been on the podcast a few times. I'm new, but in the past saying, I remember Gatti. I remember Gatti being schooled by a young Mbappe, and I get it, it's Mbappe, but I just remember how silly he looked, and my mind has never recovered Gatti from that fact. He scores a brilliant goal now and then. I'm convinced that's why he's on the pitch for a corner kick situation. I think that's it. But I just, defensively, I want him to grow up. I have hopes for Gatti. I do love his passion, but we need results and players that can get them. Consistency matters, as we've talked about. So my advice would be, you got to, the situation is there for you to take. Frederick likes to use take it by the balls, right? With Bremer out, you got to take the situation by the balls and grow up and play in his stead.
And Frederic, this question from Ahmed Sacco. Quite simply, who is your MVP of the match? One answer.
Vlahovic.
Give me a one-sentence description of why. Nice and tight.
We lack leadership, and he has shown leadership on and off the pitch. Whether it's because of his contract, I don't care. But he has stepped up. He doesn't score like we're used to, but today I saw the Vlahovic that I saw at Fiorentina. And that's a Vlahovic we're going to need because it's going to be a tough run of games now. And the reason as to why is not my business. That's something for Spalletti or Vlahovic to resolve. But he stands his ground and he's proven to be the leader of this team. That speaks volumes about the rest as well. But at least he shows up. And we've been asking for Vlahovic to just show up. And he has. So kudos to him. And I think the way that he pressed and the way that he maintained the compactness of midfield and strikers together, because it was always him pointing, directing, shouting, whatever, in a very constructive way, might I add, clearly helped us gain that victory today. So whether or not he's selling himself or, the offers that are coming in, I really don't care. We needed him to perform and he's performing. So hats off to him.
Coming off of the Atalanta Coppa Italia victory of May 2024, there was a part of me that said, give him the captaincy after that performance coming into the new season. But we haven't seen this version of Vlahovic in quite some time. It is nice to see how much longer we'll get of it. God only knows. Who knows if Dusan even knows at this point. But good answer, Frederic. I think there may have been some other thoughts from the group on who stood out, but I think that's a reasonable answer with a reasonable supporting argument. So we're coming in to wrapping this up. We will finish with each of our friends here giving their one thought on what they learned today. So before I give you each an opportunity to share your one thought in 30 seconds or less, we'll take care of a little bit of housekeeping here just to give you some time to think about it. First is Farhad, as many of you should know, is the founder and main host of this podcast going into its 13th season, always trying to be creative in new ways to engage with you, our audience. We know you have so many different mediums and outlets to focus your Juventus fandom upon, and we're grateful that you would spend any time with us. We're introducing a voicemail service. This is something that he's tried before, but I'm posting the number in the link for those of you who are joining us here at YouTube Live. But for those of you listening, get out your pen and paper. There is this number.
Are you going to say it twice? Are you going to say
US number
it
plus
twice?
1 as the country code, 630-426-9290. Repeat, 630-426-9290. You have the opportunity to call us directly, leave thoughts, questions, comments. These have the opportunity to be focused within our social, but also on the pod live. If it takes off, cool, but we'll see how that goes. The second thing is we have, as Zach referenced, a Champions League match coming up this week against Sporting. We're going to throw our hat in the ring and try to do a live watch along for that. So if that's your thing and you like joining for that way of consuming and experiencing the match, please tune in. We're looking forward to doing that for the first time. All right. So we've
also
reached
Turin Giants member Jack will be at the game, and we'll hope to share some really cool content from the game, from the Allianz on our Instagram, right, Kevin?
Yes, that is right. I forgot about that. And I think Jack is actually on a flight on his way to Northern Italy to catch the Milan-Roma match tomorrow, and then going to the Allianz to watch the Champions League match midweek. All right, guys. So we've reached the end here. I'd like to know the one thing that you learned from today's match, starting with our newbie, Patrick. Sorry, you can't escape the nickname.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Yeah, I don't know that it's a learning, but just something that I came to the conclusion of. Just stay tuned. I think there's competence. There's a level of professionalism that we saw today that is refreshing, and it does need to be consistent and continue. But I think if my message, and I've been saying this in my head offline for a while, but now that Spalletti is here, stay tuned, because I have a different feel about things.
Frederic.
The main takeaway today was we made a very critical decision, and for once it seems that we made one with insight and foundation, and not haphazardly pulled out a name out of a hat somewhere in Turin. And regardless of the outcome, because you never know, nobody has a glass ball, but regardless of the outcome, I'm happy how we came to this decision and how we executed it. Because I think we did it as a team in terms of management, with a clear vision and a lot of bravado, because it would be easier to take, for instance, a Palladino with no pressure on his shoulders because he's a young coach. But we took the other route as a management team, and regardless of the result, it took effort and a bit of, how shall I put it, a bit of clear thinking. So I'm glad that we at least did that, and regardless of the outcome, we have people taking accountability and responsibility now, and that's already a major shift, I feel.
Zach, final words.
What I learned was that, to Spalletti, winning will require each and every member of the club and staff. From Coop Miners adopting this new position for the betterment of the team, to every single outfield starter having no fewer than 20 completed passes for the first time, in a very, very long time, to Spalletti doing what he could, actively coaching and distracting and time wasting on the bench, and to his staff running the training so that he can better evaluate players. I learned that winning will require contribution from every single player, whether they start or they're like Chico, they come off the bench and have a material impact on the game.
For those of you who joined us on this YouTube Live, thank you for spending this time with us post-match. For those of you who are listening to this later on your podcast streaming platform of choice, thank you. We're grateful for you spending time with us. And until Sporting, which we hope for another 3 points, fino alla fine, forza Juve.
Contadini per Nedved, Pirlo, la conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco, Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero! Palla di Pogacar, Pogba, rete, un gol incredibile, Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus.